Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, welcome to Fox 12 Now. There is our live shot overlooking Portland, Oregon, and I think you can kind of see Mount Tabor right there in that shot. We're going to be talking about them later today, but that is for another segment. It is nice out there, but it is nice that you're joining us here as well. So this is Fox 12 Now. We are live streaming here every weekday starting at 1 p.m. We're on Facebook, YouTube, our website, and our apps, so lots of places to find the show live, but also to watch it afterwards. So I definitely recommend downloading that Fox 12 Oregon app. Today, we're talking about something that, could be coming up soon, and that's the Northwest Museum of Cartoon Arts. As we know, there are many talented artists and creative people and illustrators here in the Northwest and in the Portland area specifically as well. And it's time maybe for a museum. And there's two people joining us right now who are representing the organization that wants to make that happen. And we're talking to Michael Ring, who is the treasurer for the organization, and Mike Rosen, the chair. Two MRs joining us here right now. Both of you, thank you, for being here. I'm excited to talk about this because obviously I'm a fan of all the artwork and the artists that could be a part of this, but also just the idea that there could be a museum for it. And I think to start off, let's go this way. Mike Rosen, would you mind giving us a little bit of the history of this organization and telling us, how this all got started?
So we've been around for almost 3 years now, working to build the infrastructure for our museum. And the way it got started is about 3 years ago, there was a post on Facebook about an Oregon Historical Society exhibition on Pacific Northwest comics. And people started reminiscing about that exhibit and saying that we really need to have our own museum in Portland to celebrate comics and cartoon arts. And so I talked to a lot of people in the industry, and everyone was really supportive of the idea. And so I just kind of ran with it. And that's how we got started.
And what was your history with the cartoon arts before that?
Yeah, so my history is I'm a long-term comics reader, overall fan. I go to conventions. I've edited some comics. I collect them. And so I'm just excited about the topic. And then I'm active in the comics community. So that's really my background.
And Michael, can you tell us about your background too and how you became involved with this organizational push to create this museum?
Absolutely. I've been working for about 25 years professionally in comics. I worked at Dark Horse Comics in Milwaukee, Oregon for about 7 years. And then I left that to open Bridge City Comics, a comic book store located in North Portland on Mississippi Avenue. And that is actually how I met Mike. And that's how I met you, I think, Greg.
Yep.
I think you come to some of our events and stuff, and we started talking. And much like Mike, I'm a lifelong comics fan. And when he approached me with this idea, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Portland is such a hub, and the Pacific Northwest is such a hub of comics, publishers, creators. I mean, even stuff like Leica, Wyden and Kennedy. I mean, there are so many professional outlets for comics, as well as a huge community of creators and writers and artists and people who work at DC Comics or Marvel Comics, down to people who publish their own zines at the IPRC.
Yeah, huge organizations, or huge swath of people here, creative people involved in the arts in some way, shape, or form, specifically that. And I think, to clarify a little bit more the museum too, because you brought up like Wyden and Kennedy and even, marketing organizations like that. So for the cartoon arts, this would encompass all of that. Is that right?
Right. We're talking about everything from comics to comic strips to single panel cartoons to animation and everything in between. We want to cover it all.
And that's got to be a pretty huge undertaking, just given the fact of how many things you just mentioned right there, let alone all the people within those fields. So how do you go about curating something like this?
You hire a really good curator. And so we've been collaborating with the San Francisco Cartoon Art Museum, and their curator, Andrew Farago, is somebody that we've hired to curate our first exhibit. They've been kind of a mentor museum to us, and we really appreciate all the help they've provided.
And that's great that you have somebody at least to refer to as far as how to get this off the ground. And you mentioned you've been doing this for 3 years. So give us kind of an idea of where you're at right now and what it is you're wanting to accomplish to make this a reality.
So the first couple of years was building a board, building a really effective fundraising and marketing committee, and doing some work dabbling in some work in the cartoon arts. Like we held a class last summer for 9 to 12-year-olds on reading, writing, and drawing comics. Could you get the question to me again?
Oh yeah, no problem. So what is it that you need to undertake now?
Yes,
I mean, I guess
yes.
as far as you had these first years of getting all that together and getting the board together
Right.
and the ideas. So where are you at in the process right now?
Yeah, so thank you. So what we want to do is we want to hold our first exhibit in October of this year. And so we've embarked on a crowdfunding campaign called Kickstarter to raise $75,000 to cover all the costs: rent, framing, curation, personnel, and everything it takes to run a first exhibit. So we're really trying to get people's attention and push them to the Kickstarter campaign so we can raise this money. This is our first big fundraiser.
And it's going
Oh,
to
yeah.
fund the.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
And like Mike said, it's the funds are going to go so that we can have a 3 to 6 month pop-up basically, and then we can use that as a proof of concept to then go to show that we know what we're doing and that we can do this successfully, and have a concrete example that we can then go to large donors, corporate donors, who may want to then get involved. They're probably not going to want to give a bunch of people who've never done anything a bunch of money to do this, but this is a great stepping stone to get us into larger fundraising and hopefully a permanent home, where we can have an existing museum that's open 7 days a week in Portland.
Right. This is our proof of concept.
Proof of concept. So yeah, somebody can go to it, and that means I would imagine the public can also attend this and take a look at it. So you mentioned it would be 3 to 6 months in length, this pop-up, and tell us about where that would be and what all would be involved in it.
Well, we've looked at a variety of spaces. One place we're really interested in is Lloyd Center. It's got foot traffic, it's got transportation, it's in a transportation hub, it's got parking, and there's really a core of local shops and artists there. There's even a comic book store, a Lego shop, a gaming shop. And so we think it would be the perfect spot to start, and it's affordable for us too, especially.
And something else, with this, you mentioned, going back to the curation side of things and bringing all that in. What's the response been like to artists and illustrators and creatives in the industry since you've reached out to them about this?
Well, everyone's said the same thing. It's about time. And a lot of our rewards for the Kickstarter campaign has come from local artists and publishers. And so we feel like we've got a core support from the Pacific Northwest, whether it's big publishers like Dark Horse and Oni, all these artists and writers that live here. They've all contributed in some way. Some of them are even on our board.
And something with a museum, a museum's usually designed to celebrate the past, reminisce about it, make sure it's respected, and also appreciate all that stuff that came before. But I know you also want to inspire new generations of artists and creatives. Can you tell us how the museum would do that?
Mike, can I take this one?
Yeah.
So education is a real core value for the museum. Like Mike had referenced, last year we got a grant from the Nora Roberts Foundation to put on that class for 9 to 12-year-olds, and we were able to make it free, and that was really, really wonderful. And going forward, we want to continue doing classes. This coming summer, we've got plans for 2 classes, one for the 9 to 12, and then one for a little bit older kids, maybe in high school. And then in addition, once we get the pop-up going, one of the ideas we have is to have a maker space as well, in not just the pop-up, but in the fully funded museum, where we've got not just paper and pencils and stuff, but we have computers, we have scanners, we have printers, and then we can also run classes in there. So we don't have to rent additional space. We can run classes much more often on a much wider variety of topics too.
That's great. So lots of opportunities even before this would ever be created for kids to be involved and for people to learn about it. I love that. I think just a couple of questions here. Mike, I'll go to you first. You know, you're a longtime fan, as you mentioned, and that's how you got into this and wanting to do this. So for you, what is the most important thing for you about having this museum and why it should be there for everybody to celebrate these artists?
Well, I think it's one thing that's really important is celebrating the rich history of comics in the Pacific Northwest. And I think another thing that's really important is several things that Michael said. I mean, we really value literacy, young adult education, the maker space. We really want this to be not just art on the walls and people coming in to see that. We want it to be an active space for artists to give presentations, for ourselves to run classes. And so all those additional items make this a really special museum, I think, and why it's so important.
And Michael, for you, you know, having obviously Bridge City Comics, I mean, being involved in the space for so long and being there to really help people connect with so many different forms of the artwork through your shop or through all the other things that you do. You know, what is the most important thing for you, for people to take away once they do walk into this pop-up museum when it does happen?
So I know we have limited time, so I won't, go on and on about it. But
okay, we got a few minutes.
One of the things I love about comics is that it means something different to everybody. And I think it's the best art form. I mean, I love movies and TV and music and all that, but the creativity and, a common cliche is that you don't really have a budget when you're making comics, as opposed to like a movie. So anything you can think of, you can put on the page. So I love sharing my excitement about comics. Any kind of story you want to tell or read, you can do in comics. Romance, history, fiction, science fiction, anything. There are great, mental health comics out there. It's a wonderful adaptive art form that people are naturally drawn to. When working in Bridge City Comics and running Bridge City Comics, I had so many parents come and tell me my kid never read. They did not like to read at all. But once we got them a couple comics, it just took off. So it's such a great gateway for new readers, for existing readers. There's so much to offer, and I love it so much, and I want to share that with everybody.
That's so great. I mean, and seeing that firsthand, and now, having this opportunity to potentially help everybody out, to expose even more people to it, to help celebrate that in so many ways. I think, to clarify that for everybody, talking about the Kickstarter. So what is the best way for people to support this and help make this a reality?
Well, right now, the biggest thing is the Kickstarter campaign, helping us raise the money we need to start our first exhibit. We have other opportunities. We encourage people to visit our website, and there they can make a direct donation or they can sign up to volunteer, and they can really learn about what is important to us and what we want to do. And then we have one other opportunity coming up really fast. This weekend, We're doing a 20th anniversary screening of Hellboy, which is a Dark Horse property, and it's a community benefit screening at the Hollywood Theater on Sunday afternoon at 3, and it's also a significant fundraiser for us. So we're obviously encouraging people to get excited about that and attend.
I was just going to play part of the video here too, just kind of showcasing that, and again, encouraging everybody to check out that Kickstarter, which goes through this in a lot more detail, just about how amazing this really could be, and that what we can get out of this. I mean, I want to say to both of you, thank you very much for joining us here to talk about it as well. And Michael, I'll ask the last question to you. Any message that you would want to give to the community as a whole to support this, and why it's so important?
This is Portland to the core. This is a wonderful, beautiful, creative, amazing city. Despite what you may hear from some people, this city is incredible. And honestly, I think comics itself encapsulates Portland perfectly. The creativity, the energy, the community that comes together. It's a very wonderful and welcoming community. And Portland is comics. Comics is Portland.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, for both of you, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, congratulations on making it to this point too, and having this Kickstarter going again. You know, working on this for so many years, obviously to celebrate decades of Northwest creatives in this entire field and people who are fans of it all around. As you mentioned, Portland is comics, comics is Portland, and this is even beyond that into the Northwest. So thank you to both of you for joining me here on Fox 12 Now. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
Greg.
You bet. And for everybody watching as well, thank you for being here. If this is your first time, this is Fox 12 Now. So we host this every weekday starting at 1 p.m. And then throughout the afternoon, we have all kinds of different interviews, segments covering a wide range of topics, including talking about things like this. So if it is your first time, I suggest downloading that Fox 12 Oregon app, or take a look at some of the other segments that we cover. So we really get to have some in-depth conversations on here. And so I really appreciate you joining us. Coming up at 1:30 p.m., we're going to be talking about Mount Tabor Park in Southeast Portland. They just received a pretty big award. It's Earth Day, depending on when you're watching this. Right now, live, it's Earth Day, and they received a big award. So we're going to be talking about that. They're the only park in Oregon and one of only 24 in the U.S. to receive this designation from Leave No Trace. So we'll discuss what that means with the Portland parks. That's at 1:30. So whatever platform you're on, I'll be right back right about then.